Hello my friends, I hope you're well. Welcome to another video, and today, as I promised, I'm going to reveal my own opinion about the certain episode from the Vorkosigan saga, the very interesting political issue that we discussed in my previous video. First of all, let me remind you that in the second book, one of the main characters, Lord Errol Vorkosigan, the regent of Barrayar Empire, refused to save his old friend's relative from execution, and the only reason of that decision was that Lord Vorkosigan believed that otherwise it would be some sort of corruption. I've already told you that from the very beginning I was completely on Lord Vorkosigan's side, but nowadays I change my mind, and here I am going to explain myself. My argument number one: Lord Vorkosigan had not been completely honest with us. I mean, he used the resources of the whole planet just to save and cure his own son. Everybody who read the book knows that after that execution, the old friend, in order of revenge, attempted an attack on Vorkosigan's house using a chemical weapon, a saltoxin gas. Fortunately, Lord and his wife Cordelia survived that attack. Unfortunately, Cordelia was pregnant, and her son, Miles, who was inside her body, took a huge damage, and as a result, baby lost all his bones. Miles was alive, but in this condition, without bones, it was impossible for him to grow up as a normal man. So Cordelia got a terrible choice, and she had to decide quickly. On one hand, she could try to save Miles's life by using a very experimental therapy, but nobody knew what would be the result of that. Miles maybe would a very unhealthy and unhappy person. On other hand, Cordelia could make an abortion, and then she would give a birth to another healthy child. As we know, Cordelia decided to do everything to save Miles's life. The problem of that choice is interesting, and I will make a video about it, but now I want to bring your attention to the point that when Cordelia finally found a specialist of chemical weapons, it was Dr. Wagen, the only person who agreed to try this experimental calcium therapy. She promised him in return that he could use everything on the planet. She said, "You can use any med labs, any materials or equipment, the whole Imperial Hospital," she said. And she didn't ask anyone if it would be okay or not. She decided on spot, and her husband, Lord Regent, didn't dare to object. I see in this a little hypocrisy, лицемерие, because on one hand, Lord Vorkosigan was a great fighter against corruption. He has no friends, he didn't help them, no lives matter for him. But on the other hand, when it came to him, he suddenly became not so great fighter against corruption, and he began to understand that sometimes lives matter, especially if it's your son's life. So I could say, excuse me, my lord, but you a little hypocrite, лицемер. But it's okay for him. Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely normal behavior of any decent parents. Obviously, Lord Vorkosigan was not a Jedi. You know, Jedi from Star Wars. People who have no feelings, no relatives. Do you remember the sad story of Anakin Skywalker? It was a young, brilliant man, a great Jedi, who many times came to the Council of Jedi and asked them, please save my mother from slavery. And they replied many times to him, forget it, it's not your business, this connection is your weakness, you must cut it off. No wonder that Anakin became a crazy man. Who would not? Because Anakin was a normal man, and so was Lord Vorkosigan. Honestly, I didn't understand the whole conception of Jedi. I mean, I don't understand why even Jedi protected the Republic, since they could not share the normal people feeling. If you understand this, please let me know. I know only one person who really had no feelings, who hated his relatives. It was Stalin. Stalin killed almost all his friends for greater good. It's always for greater good. And Stalin hated all his relatives. For example, his son Vasily was captured by Nazi and killed in concentration camp, and Stalin did nothing to save his son. Many people in Soviet Union and in Russia say that it was great of Stalin, because at that time a lot of Soviet people were in concentration camps. But I don't agree. It would be great of Stalin if he really suffered this situation. As we know, he didn't. He hated Vasily, because from Stalin's point of view, Vasily should die on the battlefield and never ever allowed himself to be captured. Stalin was a machine. Do you know that Stalin personally decided how long must be classrooms in Soviet school? He personally approved any new building in Soviet Union, at least in Moscow and Leningrad. Stalin every day read a lot of reports from every part of our country. He read a lot of statistics. He controlled everything and decided everything. He was like a supercomputer, like the Skynet. Ruthless, extremely productive, very well educated, by the way, self-educated. Stalin read a lot of books. He had a huge library, and he left a lot of remarks on the book, because when Stalin read any book, he was thinking and he was leaving remarks on pages. So it was ruthless, extremely smart machine, and we know the result. From the very beginning, Soviet Union was a poor and weak country, but after Stalin's death, Soviet Union became a superpower country, a Soviet empire that ruled a half of the world. But does it make Stalin a good leader? I don't know. Maybe for that specific period of time, yes, but definitely not now. And I'm glad that Lord Vorkosigan was not like Stalin. Some of my friends also mentioned a moral aspect of this issue. But honestly, I don't want to discuss it because I believe all our moral must be in our laws. If the law is immoral, let's change the law. Otherwise, everything must be according to the law. If you don't agree with me, please let me know. My argument number 2. Lord Vorkosigan completely misunderstood the whole conception of fighting against corruption. I mean, corruption is a system that functions independently and automatically because it's based on human's nature. If you want to fight that system, you have to create your own system, a mechanism that also will work automatically and, most important, independently of any leader or any authorities. Vorkosigan's wife even mentioned something that she said, Barrayar needs a constitution. You have to develop your political system, she said. And you know, it was not a bad idea. But Lord Vorkosigan replied that the proposal of a constitution would cause a civil war. Maybe it would cause a civil war if you make reforms too fast, but I'm sure if you make reforms not too fast, everything will be okay. On the contrary, if you do nothing, it will civil war or revolution for sure. If that independent system or mechanism existed, this situation when Vorkosigan's friend came and asked for help was impossible. Instead of refusing to help his friends, Vorkosigan should develop the political system. That's what the great leader does. And here I recall our famous queen, Catherine II, or Catherine the Great. She considered herself as a very progressive leader. She was familiar with many writers and French philosophers of the Great French Revolution. She corresponded with Voltaire and considered him a teacher. And when Catherine came to the Russia and became a Russian queen, she promised that she would stop slavery in Russia. I call a slave everybody who can be sold or can be bought. We are all descendants of Russian slaves, Potomki. I don't know anyone whose ancestors, предки, were slaveholders. So, Catherine promised stop slavery, but she did nothing. She did even worse. Before Catherine, Russian slaves had a few rights, but after her, they lost everything. I can understand. Maybe she was afraid. After all, she and her friends killed her husband, the real Russian king, and she was a German. She was born in Germany. By the way, all Russian kings and queens were German, it doesn't matter. So maybe she was afraid, but she could make something. She could change slightly this situation with slavery and prepare the next stage or next step of complete ending of slavery. But she did nothing. As I said, she did everything even worse. So I cannot call her the great. She was good leader, I don't deny it, but definitely not great. The great leader must change the political system, and she lost her chance. So, speaking about Lord Vorkosigan, the same. This is all for now. In the next video I will tell you what I think about Russian political system. Thank you for watching, and I am waiting for your comments. Goodbye.